So, hi everyone. The topic that was given to our group is all about the decriminalizing prostitution. So, first, let us identify what is the meaning of the prostitute. So, as any act, transaction, scheme, or design involving the purchase, promotion of sale, or use of a person by another for sexual intercourse, lascivious conduct, including sexual favors or other forms of humiliating, degrading, or exploitative behavior in exchange for money, profit, or any other consideration. So, in other words, prostitute is there are people or mostly mga babae sila na they're selling sex for exchange for money. So, sila yung mga taong or mga babae na may kita natin sa mga bar. Sila yung mga sila yung mga nakikipag sexual intercourse for the sake of money. So, binabayaran sila after ng intercourse na yon. So, next one is let us identify what is the decriminalizing prostitution.
All right. This decriminalizing prostitution is it this criminalize women in prostitution, regard them as victims and not criminals. This consists only of the removal of penal actions to women in prostitution without taking any further measures to regulate or legalize prostitution. This should recognize that prostituted persons are not criminals, but victims of the system of prostitution that deserve protection and not punishment. This, however, does not automatically exempt prostituted persons who themselves commit any of the prohibited acts of prostitution, such as pimping other people, from criminal liability. Basically, when you say decriminalizing prostitution, it's prostitution is being legalized. And the people who are in this kind of industry will be not considered as criminals, that prostitution is not a crime. So let's now move forward to the issue and effect on women when prostitution is being legalized. Let's move on to the issues. It is used for survival, a threat to security and safety, and exploitation. The underlying problem with prostitution is that a woman may or may not want this kind of work, but they are struggling to survive financially. They resort to doing this line of job, and some women might actually want prostitution to be decriminalized or legalized for when they are in need of money. They can do this without being penalized. Then, decriminalizing prostitution also entails a threat to women's security and safety. For instance, a prostitute was once almost killed by her client, and she was hesitant to ask the police for assistance as the police she feels like they are not accountable for her decision to sell sex to a stranger. Prostitution came in different forms. Some are massage parlors, escort service, cybersex bars, and brothels. This is where women are mostly being exploited. And now let's move forward to the effects. What are the effects of prostitution being legalized? Of course, first, because selling sex means using their body for sexual gratification to strangers, it also causes them a huge risk of acquiring a certain disease that affects their health. And also, one of the effects can be some people might consider this as a career. We all know that this kind of job is not something to be proud of, as it's not decent. But some women, yeah, that's they set a certain amount of time to do this job to save for their retirement. For example, merong isang prostitute na na-interview and then sinabi niya na gagawin ko to for 8 years. And then, ang gagawin niya lang is mag-iipon siya ng pera to save for her retirement na hindi naman panghabang buhay 'tong trabaho na 'to. Kaya okey lang, at least mas mabilis kong kikitain yung pera, mas mabilis akong makakapag-retire. Mabibili ko or magagawa ko na lahat ng gusto ko. But ano naman yung magiging consequence nun? Yun yung third effect niya. They are being subjected to discrimination. As I've said that it is not a decent job, being part of the prostitution industry automatically makes women be subjected to discrimination as they are considered as sexual objects and commodities. That's why they tend to have a lack of respect for women in this line of work. Siyempre, kahit siguro kahit sino naman 'no, um, 'pag may kilala tayo or may nakita tayo na tao, tapos nalaman natin na prostitute pala sila or ayun na, yung nagbebenta nga sila ng aliw para sa pera, nagiging mababa yung tingin ng karamihan sa'tin. So yun yung nagiging epekto nila. Hindi lang basta sa babae or sa mga ibang tao na nagbebenta rin ng aliw. Let's now move forward to what rights of women are violated. And it will be discussed by Ate Annalyn.
Okay, thank you, Jessa. So, we are going to discuss the implication of decriminalizing prostitution on women's rights. First is the right of freedom from exploitation. In the context of decriminalizing prostitution, there is a potential for exploitation and trafficking in the absence of proper regulation. Ibig sabihin nito, yung women na nagtatrabaho as selling sex is hindi na sila nakaka-receive ng patas na na rights galing sa society. Second is the right to dignity and non-discrimination. There is a concern that decriminalization may risk perpetuating gender inequality and objectification, potentially compromising the dignity of women. So yung mga nag-work sa mga ganyan, parang iniisip natin na dahil nagbebenta nga sila ng laman, wala na silang mga dignidad at saka nadi-discriminate na sila. Third is the right to health and safety. The access to healthcare may be limited, leading to safety concerns for individuals involved in discriminalized sex trade. Next is the right to privacy and autonomy. The lack of clear legal frameworks may compromise the privacy and autonomy of those engaged in the sex trade under decriminalized. Let's move on to the Special Protection of Children Against Abuse, Exploitation, and Discrimination Act, Republic Act number 7610. This legislation is crucial in safeguarding children from various forms of exploitation, including child prostitution. Lastly, we have the revised Penal Code Act number 3815 as amended, a foundation legal document in the Philippines. Various provisions in this code criminalize acts related to prostitution, such as vagrancy of maintaining a house of ill repute. These laws plays a crucial role in addressing prostitution-related issues here in the Philippines, emphasizing the protection of individuals from exploitation and ensuring the well-being of children. For the most current information and any amendments, always refer to official government sources. Thank you. That's all.
All right. So after defining prostitution, discussing the cause and effect, rights and laws violated, now the following are some actions and movement for the issues to be resolved. The first one is decriminalization advocacy. So in prostitution, it refers to the movement to remove criminal penalties for all aspects of consensual sex work. Now, this covers the buying and selling of sexual services, as well as the activities that enable the provision of sex services, including running a place of prostitutes. Now, human rights organizations support decriminalization on the grounds of decreasing harm, non-discrimination, and bodily autonomy. They stress how important it is to shield sex workers from the abuse, exploitation, and stigma, and all of which are made stronger by legalization. Next is policy and legal reform. While debating decriminalization, governments and policymakers take into consideration a number of examples and strategies, like allowing sex workers to access legal protections, such as the right to report crimes without fear of arrest, and would allow them to organize and advocate for their own rights. Now, the main goals of implementation strategies are to address issues with social integration, exploitation, and safety. Then lastly, empowerment and support service. Programs that will assist sex workers who wish to leave sex work by providing vocational training, job placement, and access to education. They also offer support during the transition to alternative employment and livelihoods. So providing opportunities for skill development, education, and career advancement to expand their options beyond sex work. On the other hand, we need to respect their choice and decisions, promoting self advocacy and empowering them to take control of their lives. Now, the last part will be discussed by Julie.
Okay, all right. Thank you po. So for the last part, so the issue can be resolved through the three bullets mentioned earlier. So what if the issue is not resolved naman? So what are the action or recommendation? Since prostitution is not that kind of decent work, so especially sa bansa natin na medyo sensitive yung gantong work, so hindi siya ganun ka-legalize sa atin. But at the same time is may mga country din na legalize yung prostitution, but hindi pa nga ganun na decriminalize yung gantong work. So, as a recommendation, women laws and rights will still be the same. So, there's still a law and there's still a woman rights. But on the other hand, may protection pa rin naman yung mga kababaihan. Meron pa rin silang meron pa rin silang meron pa rin silang protection sa ating bansa or through the other country. But at the same time, yung pagiging prostitute or prostitution is medyo hindi pa ganun nalilegalize na magkakaroon sila ng protection since ang mga prostitute nga is wala sila ganong protection na um, sa mga, let's say, sa mga sex workers na kapag nagkaroon ng mga accidents or insidente na hindi naman kaaya-aya, like, pwede nang nasa bingit yung buhay nila, is hindi naman sila makakapag-report kagad sa mga authorities since they are sex workers nga. So, wala silang laban, wala silang, hindi ganun ka-safety, wala silang safety nets through their work. And next one is to respect prostitute and treat them as a human and don't blame them on the work field that they entered. So hindi naman din natin masisisi na ganun yung trabaho na pinasok nila since sa dinami-dami nga ng trabaho na pwedeng pagkakitaan is mas maalam sila na mas madali yung pera sa pagiging prostitute. But at the same time is kailangan din nila ng respeto. Respeto bilang tao. Kahit hindi ganun sila nire-respeto since ganun nga yung trabaho nila, is kailangan may respeto pa rin sa kanila as a human. And lastly, hindi man ganun kaganda sa pandinig natin yung trabaho nila. Pero kahit naman sabihin natin na hindi siya decenteng trabaho is para sa kanila kasi is yun na yung bumubuhay sa kanila. Yun na yung pinagkakakitaan nila, doon na sila kumukuha ng pang source of income nila. So, hindi rin natin sila masisisi kung bakit pagiging prostitute yung pinasok nila. But at the same time is may mga tao rin na nadadamay, like for example sa mga menor de edad na wala silang kaalam-alam, wala silang kamuang-muang na ganun na pala yung trabaho na tinatrabaho nila. So in that case, there are always a law in every work like that. But yun nga, kapag na-legalize yung decriminalization sa mga prostitute is, ayun, magkakaroon sila ng safeguard, ng safety net, kahit na ganun yung trabaho nila. So that's all for our topic, that's all about decriminalization prostitution.